Well, as promised, we're going to go back to the Soweto campus of the University of Johannesburg, where our reporter Chriselda Lewis is, and speaking to some of the people who have already arrived in anticipation of the State of the Province address that will be delivered by Gauteng Premier David Makhura at around 10 a.m. this morning. So let's cross over to Chriselda once again to see who she has with her in anticipation of that State of the Province address. Chriselda?
Well, thank you very much, Sakina. Much anticipation ahead of that State of the Province address at 10 o'clock, as you pointed out, by the Gauteng Premier David Makhura. A bit earlier on, we were talking about some of the priorities that he's expected to outline in the State of the Province address. The economy is certainly high on the agenda of that. I mean, the creation of jobs, not just in the economic hub of South Africa, is certainly a priority for this particular government. And I think amongst many other issues, the creation of jobs, how to bolster the economy, the township economy in this instance. You would know, of course, the previous administration had also focused here in Gauteng on bolstering the township economy. How does the Premier David Makhura expect to do more than what has been done previously to ensure that economic opportunities are open to all in this particular province? 28.9% unemployment. It's still a province with the highest number of service delivery protests. How does he plan to tackle some of that? The population itself that I spoke about earlier on is certainly a challenge for the Gauteng Premier David Makhura. Everyone flocking to this particular province for economic opportunities. So if we're going to talk about the economy, we can certainly speak to the MEC for Economic Development, Dr. Kgosientso Ramokgopa. Thank you very much for your time this morning, MEC. Look, the economy is taking centre stage, certainly. We've not been doing well for quite some time. Gauteng has always been that attractive province where many come here to seek economic opportunities. What is the expectation from this particular legislature?
Good morning, Chriselda, and good morning to the viewers. Indeed, the economy will take center stage, will be front center of the interventions that we are making. And drawing from the speech of the President in the SONA address, I think the emphasis here is to say that, look, Gauteng contributes a third to the country's GDP. We are sitting at about 1.5 trillion rands. So it is important that we make decisive interventions because we've got a disproportionate amount of responsibility to address that. So what are we proposing to do? In the first instance, we think that we must make decisive interventions in the townships. Yes. So there must be upstream value chain capture. So as you build roads, you know that there's bitumen, there's asphalt, there's aggregates, which are the primary inputs. So we must take an interest, not just in building the roads, in where we procure those. Yeah. So that's the first area of intervention. The second one is that we build over 1.2 million houses over a period of time. So the output is that they are houses, but we never took interest on the value chain capture, and I'm emphasizing on upstream. So you know that the primary inputs there is bricks, is mortar, is door frames and window frames. So we're going to ensure that we create factories along that value chain, in fact, and ensure that this does happen. And in the next 2 months, we'll be making concrete announcement in terms of the share of the capture, at least in the first year of the 6th administration. So in that way, we think that we'll be able to make decisive interventions. Then the second broad area is that of agriculture. So I'm talking of primary agriculture and agro-processing. Because you know that rural provinces are the ones that lend themselves for primary agriculture, but consumption happens here. I mean, over 40% of total consumption of whatever is produced happens here, well, depending on which commodities. So we are saying, one, we are going to be graduating over 53 black farmers into commercial farmers. And in that way, we are going to create huge employment opportunities. We are putting it at roughly about 35,000 direct, if you like, conservative, with regards to primary production and across the value chain. So those are the interventions that we are proposing. And then another area is that there's a number of commodities that we are procuring for food feeding schemes at the schools, hospitals, if you like, and many other centers that we run. So we're saying that if you create small farmers that are township based, we should be able to procure from there. But there's an elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is the legislation. So the legislative framework is going to undermine some of these interventions that we are proposing to make. Because in essence, what we are proposing is set aside. So there must be designated people that will be procuring from.
So MEC, how do you, in a province that attracts so many, I mean, if we look at the growth of the Gauteng province, it certainly puts a lot of pressure on a government to deliver on so many people who want to access opportunities, and everybody thinks Gauteng. So how do you do that in trying to ensure that so many people do have access to the kinds of opportunities they want?
Well, I take a contrarian view. My view is that, in fact, is a positive. So you serve as a magnet. So if you look at the major centers of development across the globe, it's what you call city regions, and these are a concentration of labor, concentration of skills in one area. So the issue is to make sure that people who come here as a result of pushing factors from the rural areas, people who bring skills from outside the country, in fact, are able to participate in the mainstream economy, so that you benefit from the aggregate, the numbers, and the single labor market. So one of the things that the MEC will be announcing as a follow-up to the SOPA, because we'll be coming with a more granularized detail of what the Premier would have said, is to say, one, we need to prepare young people for jobs of the future. So there are two interventions that we are proposing. The first one is to ensure that we create schools of specialization. Already in Atteridgeville, we have got a school that is only designed to focus on nuclear, so preparing young people around nuclear. And nuclear for medicinal purposes, leave the controversies around energy. And the second one is preparing young people for the fourth industrial revolution. So we'll be at the forefront of advocating for the revision of curriculum to ensure that it's designed in that way. Obviously, when people come here in their numbers, it puts pressure on primary infrastructure, healthcare and education. So we must accelerate the delivery of schools and all of that, and ensure that the primary healthcare is designed to meet all the pressures.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Dr. Kgosientso Ramokgopa, who is of course the MEC for Economic Development here in Gauteng, outlining of course some of the issues that will take centre stage in this sixth legislature here, the provincial legislature, and of course the economy once again expected to take centre stage. But let's take a short break here on Morning Live. We'll have more interviews here from the University of Johannesburg Soweto campus just ahead of course of that Gauteng State of the Province address coming up at 10 o'clock.